Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Sarah Smith, and you're listening to Raw Intentions. All right. As you can see, the studio is looking a little different today. I feel like we're doing a throwback back out of my bedroom. I'm snowed in, so to speak. There's a huge snowstorm. It's projected to be like 20 plus inches of snow in the next couple days. And I was supposed to go down to Denver to the studio and record, and I can't do that in my two-wheel drive 4Runner. So I decided to play it safe and do it here. So if you're watching on YouTube, I do have a better video quality setup today than I normally do. And if you're listening to us, hopefully we sound almost the same. I'm still in my ski underlayers. I skied this morning, and I decided to throw on a ski hat that I made when I was in Jackson Hole last ski season that says "ski like a bitch" on it. Plus, my hair is just disgusting from wearing beanies and helmets on it for the last week. So this helps cover it up quite well. But it's been a great day. I'm a little stuffed up. I've been back in town for almost 2 weeks now after my Southeastern tour, as I feel like I do once every other quarter. I got so sick when I got home. I think it was just from being in the South, the heat and the humidity, and then immediately coming back here to a snow globe. I mean, it has been dumping nonstop, and I'm not complaining. That's the best thing ever. Our mountain opened November 9th, I think, or somewhere around then. So I got back kind of just in time. I've already skied 10 days and skinned, I think, 3 or 4, gone uphill, which has been great. And I truly feel like I have my personality back. I love ski season, and it is absolutely my favorite time of year. As you can see, this week it's just me. I'm doing another little solo episode. I've got, you're watching a whole manuscript. I've been taking notes and typing things out over the last, I don't know, 6-7 weeks because I haven't recorded any podcasts since I've been traveling. As y'all know, I try to batch record. So when I'm in Denver, I'll try to do a bunch of interviews, a bunch of solo episodes all at one time, just so I'm not going back and forth, and it helps my little ADD mind focus. So I wanted to pepper in a solo episode before the new year hits because it's literally right around the corner, which is insane. But I can't believe it's been so long since I've talked to you guys. I have so much to tell you. I've been home for a couple weeks. I do have to turn around tomorrow morning and leave back to the South for Thanksgiving with my boyfriend's family, and then a whole work explosion that has happened in the last week, which I'll get into later. It's been quite a couple weeks, I'll tell you that much. I'm also on a little 2-week no drinking kick since I've been back. I was literally an alcoholic while I was gone. I was in a couple weddings, and I was visiting friends, and I was visiting family, and I went to New York, and it was just a lot of alcohol, a lot of bar food. I was actually going to record the podcast when I got back. I was so puffy. I was unrecognizable. I'm shocked my Face ID on my phone would still work. I felt disgusting. And so I haven't been drinking at all the last 2 weeks. So Thanksgiving, I will probably be absolutely blackout. My tolerance goes really, really quickly. And I've also been on a very healthy eating kick. I mean, I ate so much bar food while I was gone. If I have another wing or another nacho, I will combust. I'm over it. I've eaten absolute shit. So it's felt good to be back, get in the swing of things. I've been working out a ton, sweating, and my legs hurt so badly from skiing, but it's a good pain for sure. But anyways, this will be a typical solo episode format. If you know, you know. I'm going to catch you guys up on what I've been up to and ramble for a bit, and then I just, like to jot down little ideas, little high thoughts, if you will, of things that I want to discuss with you guys that I want to give feedback on, or questions that I've gotten in the last 2 months since I've been away via Instagram. So lots to share with y'all. Let's dive into it. Okay, so I started my travels. This was right after my birthday, pretty much. My birthday episode, which is one of my favorites that I've done. God, it feels like so long ago. I'm looking back at my notes, and it just feels like a year ago. I spent a couple weeks in Alabama with my boyfriend, Patrick. Since I was in the Southeast for weddings, I kind of tied that to, visiting him, visiting family, visiting people on the East Coast. I always do that anytime I have a bunch of weddings all at once because it's such a pain in the ass to travel from here. So I like to also, I batch record my episodes. I like to batch my travel too. So I'm not going back and forth to the airport because we have to go to the Denver airport from here, which is over 2 hours. But yeah, so I got to spend some time with him, which was really, really nice. It was the first time, over the course of the 6 weeks that we've gotten to just do normal things together. Anytime we're together, we're either on a vacation or going to a wedding together because unfortunately he has to go to all my weddings with me. I feel very, very bad for him. But it was nice. We would, have lazy days. We would cook together. We ran errands. We'd go for runs. We went to the gym. Just random things that we just haven't really gotten to do together. And we talked about it before, like this is going to be a really good test for us to see, obviously we're compatible, but if this is it, like if this is what we want to do, because it's the normal things in normal life that is your day to day. And when you're living with someone and making a life with someone, that's really important to enjoy those things with them. And it was 10 out of 10. We had so much fun together. And I mean, being long distance, anytime you get together is super special. I never got tired of him. We don't fight. It's all just sunshine and roses, truly. So spent 2 weeks in Birmingham, and then in between went to 2 weddings. So I was a bridesmaid in one of my best friends, Landon's wedding. And then I was a bridesmaid again the following weekend for my other best friend, Anna Grace. So the first wedding was in 30A, and it was actually kind of a shit show. Way back when, this feels like forever ago, when those horrible hurricanes hit, my friend Landon was supposed to get married in Boca, and that town got like completely wiped the week before she was supposed to get married. So she had a last minute move it to 30A, and luckily that area wasn't affected by the storms or anything. And so we ended up having the wedding there, and they pulled it together. It was so much fun. It was a super small wedding, and it was a bunch of my college friends, like this certain friend group from college that I love so freaking much. It's what made Atlanta so much fun when I lived in Atlanta, because they all lived there. That's like the only time I ever get FOMOs, when I see all of them hanging out. We ended up staying in this huge house, all of the couples together, and all the bridal party, because essentially the only people at the wedding were the bridal party and then the groomsmen and family. So super small, super intimate. And it was like spring break. We were giving each other haircuts at night, partying at our house. After parties always ended at our house too. And the house was so beautiful. So you could walk to the beach from there, and the weather was perfect. I mean, it was just such a blast. Landon was beautiful and like the most chill bride of all time, especially with everything that had happened. And it was nice too. It was a Friday wedding, which I've come to really love, because then on Saturday, everyone actually gets to hang out. I feel like at weddings, I always expect it to be this big reunion, when really you're just so busy with all the activities that all of a sudden you wake up and it's Sunday and you feel like you haven't had a real conversation with anyone. So I love the Saturday because it's like a debrief. Everyone gets to hang out. Everyone's probably a little bit hungover, either hair the dog, drinking again, renting out a bar, or just like laying on the beach, spending time together. And that's exactly what we did. So really loved that. Such a fun weekend. And then the next weekend was Anna Grace's wedding in Memphis. And I haven't been to Memphis in years. I used to randomly go a lot. A lot of my friends from my Jewish summer camp are from Memphis. I guess there's a lot of Jews in Memphis, which I mean, who would have thunk? So I used to go there a lot to visit all my friends from summer camp, but I haven't been in so long. And it was so much fun. The wedding was actually in her parents' backyard, which if I had a wedding in my parents' backyard, it would not look like the wedding that Anna Grace had. I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, it was stunning. There was like this massive tree, and they covered it in flowers, and that's where they did their vows and the whole ceremony. And they covered their pool, literally put like glass over their pool, and that was the dance floor. And they had all these floral arrangements and like this big tent. And both weekends for both weddings, the weather was phenomenal, and both of the weddings were outside. So thank God. And what I loved about Anna Grace's wedding in particular is it was so authentically her. She was barefoot so that she could ground during the ceremony and feel super present. She had everyone look away while she walked up, just to like give her a moment with Austin, which was so beautiful. They wrote their own vows. We did a little meditation before as a group instead of a prayer. And she wrote a letter to Zane, who is now her stepson. And everyone was crying. Like, every single person, not a dry tear in the house. Even my boyfriend was like, I just met these people and I'm crying. Like, it was so freaking beautiful. And unfortunately, I do think it's rare, and I hate to say this, that I actually feel the love at a wedding. I can count on one hand how many times I've felt the love at weddings that I've been to or that I've been in, and I've been to a billion, as you guys know. And I think both of my friends did a phenomenal job of not only like keeping it super intimate and authentic to themselves, but also, I mean, I could just feel the love from them. I know that they're going to be so happy. I love them so much. And it's so cool having all these amazing examples of couples in my life, because I'm still learning. I'm still going through it myself. And so I love looking up to different people and taking different things from their relationships. And coming back to Anna Grace's too, I'm someone that's not traditional at all. And sometimes I think the traditional customary things that you do at weddings kind of take away from that feeling of love, because it's so like black and white, cut and dry, like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And it's so predictable that when you strip that away and just do whatever feels authentic to the couple, and it's more just about like love and not all the showy stuff, I love that too. I think that that's great. And I think and I hope that the wedding industry is moving away from this like cookie cutter wedding, because I personally, as a guest, love something a little different. I also gave speeches at both weddings, which was very brave of me. Even though I can sit here and talk on the mic all day and I love being the center of attention, I hate giving speeches at weddings. Well, not at weddings, but like during the wedding weekend. I last minute did one for Landon's with one of my friends because she was nervous and she wanted me to do it with her. And then Anna Grace actually asked me to give a speech at her rehearsal dinner, which of course I wasn't going to say no, but I was so nervous. Like, I like lost sleep over this speech. It just terrifies me. But it went really well. Both of them are great. And at the end of the day, no one fucking cares. Like no one, it's like I understand that. I know that no one is there for me. I know no one knows who I am, but like, it still just makes me really nervous getting in front of people. I don't know why, but I'm proud of myself. I conquered my fear. It was also cool because these two groups of friends at each wedding were so different. And I just think I got so lucky with when I started dating Patrick because all the weddings that I've had this year and that I will have are like different pockets of my friends. So it's kind of an easy way to get him to meet every single person that is important to me in my life. Landon's wedding, we're college friends. And then Anna Grace's wedding was more friends from like my work life, I guess. Like, Anna Grace and I met because she's an influencer and I have my own business. And then we became best friends from that. So I feel like that portion of my life were who was in the wedding and also who was at the wedding. So all very important people to me, but just totally different facets. So like how rare that he gets to meet all of those people and he absolutely crushed it. It was so fun. And in the midst of the weddings, I was just chilling in Birmingham where he lives. We got to do a ton of stuff with his family, which I loved. I'm obsessed with his family. Everyone is so kind. He has two brothers and they're married with kids and then his parents. And I mean, I feel like I hit the lottery with his family. I'm so close with my family. And I think in the past when I've dated people, I mean, I've loved their families, but this one like truly just feels like the best of the best. Like they're so fun, so welcoming, warm. I love the wives of the brothers and yeah, it's been like a 10 out of 10 experience. I'm really excited to go to Thanksgiving, knowing them and getting to meet more of his family because it's so special. And I think too, being long distance, family is super important to us. So I love that we're both getting to spend ample time with each other's families because we both want each other to be close to our families so we can, show them who the other person is to us and how close we are and how important that relationship is. And speaking of family, then after Anna Grace's wedding, I went home to Huntsville for the week. And conveniently, even though there's no part of me that wants to live in Alabama. It is very nice because Patrick lives so close to my parents. So when I'm visiting him or I'm visiting home, I can see, the other one, vice versa. So I spent the week with my parents. That third week of my time away, we last minute went to a concert Sunday night, me and my mom, to Rainbow Kitten Surprise. There's a new venue called the Orion. I think it's Orion. I always say it wrong in Huntsville. And my mom is obsessed with concerts. And I was laying there so hungover on her couch that Sunday when I got back from the wedding. And she was like, have you ever heard of Rainbow Kitten Surprise? Would you want to go to their show tonight? I was like, yes. So we had the best night, her and I. We ended up like kind of sneaking into the floor seats, which was really fun. And then I spent the rest of the week just like kind of recouping and recovering. I feel so bad because when my parents get me, like when I come home, it seems to always be in the midst of weddings because I have so many friends in the Southeast that when I end up there, I try to go visit them. So they just get me like at my worst when I'm so hungover and exhausted. But all my mom ever wants me to do is rest. Like she's so chill. My parents are so chill. So I just had a bunch of home cooked meals. I went on lots of runs around our lake, went on walks with my parents, read, watched TV with them, worked and just spent quality time. I mean, it was a pretty unproblematic trip, except now that I think about it, which I think I wrote this down somewhere. So before I went home, I mean, I've been having like so much anxiety about work I don't even know how long. I feel like I've been complaining about work for a while. Like the last month has been horrible, but the last like 4 or 5 months have been really hard. And this year in general has been really hard. It's just been a huge transition year, like I've talked about on the podcast in the past. So before I got home, I set like a boundary with them. I was like, we are not talking about work. I cannot talk about work because my parents do all of not my parents. My dad does all of my finances, which does wonders for our relationship. We literally have to sit there and like comb through both of my bank accounts, my credit cards, all the things. And so we're always talking about work. My mom is also super integral in my work. I mean, she follows me on Instagram religiously, is always giving me suggestions, opinions, which even though sometimes they can be super annoying, they are so helpful. And both of my parents are so helpful and I love them so much. But because they're so involved with my work, anytime I'm home, I know that they're going to give me opinions about things. They're going to want to ask me questions and talk about things. And normally I kind of just brace myself for this because I never necessarily want to have that conversation. But this time I was like, nope. I can't. I cannot have this conversation. So I let them know in advance. I was like, no talking about work. We can talk about anything else under the sun, but no work at all. None. So because I told them that we couldn't talk about work, they were like, oh, well, if we can talk about anything else, we're going to sit down the first night that you're home for dinner and we are going to absolutely grill you about your relationship. And holy shit, I felt like I was like, the movies where the character is getting like hit, like, and like the memes where it's like, I mean, I was getting like shot at from every single angle. They talked to me about, well, how serious is it? What is he like? And they've met Patrick, but like they don't know him obviously as deeply as I do because we're long distance. What are y'all's plans? Where are you going to live since you are long distance? Do you think this is the one? My dad throws in there's this thing that I've, been hearing about called freezing your eggs. Have you thought about that? I'm like, oh my fucking God, guys. Like, I guess I told you we could talk about anything, but this is insane. And I don't know if y'all have experienced this. And I'm sure you have. I feel like for women, it is so incredibly common to feel that pressure, not only societally and not only intrinsically, but also from your family. I mean, like the classic trope of like you go home for Thanksgiving and all your relatives are like, so do you have a boyfriend yet? And you're like, no, still don't. But like, here's all these other amazing things that are happening in my life. I don't know why this is the only thing you care about. And my parents aren't like that. And they're not Southern. And I think, I kind of attribute that in my head because people in the South do marry so much younger. It's just how it is culturally. And so a lot of my friends in the South feel that pressure tenfold from their parents. And they've been, getting the when are you going to have kids? When are you going to get married talks since they were like probably 24. And my parents, neither of them are from the South. My dad's from Northern Ireland. My mom is from New York, New Jersey. And so I like didn't really expect that from them. But my mom in the last like year has been really, really harping on like my relationship status, what my future plans are. Am I prioritizing being in a relationship? Yada, yada, yada. And I mean, my parents have been at the point, especially my mom, where like if I accidentally got pregnant, my mom would have been thrilled. She would have been like, finally, a grandkid. Because it's me and my brother. My brother's 3 years younger. He's living his life in New York. He is a child. I'm also a child. Even though I'm 30, I feel like a child. And lately, I don't know, they've just been like kind of up my ass about it. And it is hard because being long distance, I feel so close to him and our relationship is so serious. But I think that's hard to describe to people like my parents who don't know him as deeply as I do. Because I mean, I don't want to freak them out and be like, oh, this is my future husband. But like, we both have conversations about the future. We talk about our lives together. We talk about how many kids we want. We talk about how we want to raise our kids. I mean, you're long distance, all you have is talk. So we talk, 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 talk all day. So we've covered pretty much anything. There's nothing that I wouldn't talk to him about. And, I don't want to tell my parents all of our intimate conversations, but also when they're sitting at the table, like grilling me on what's your plan? Where are you going to live? When are you going to have kids? Do you want to freeze your eggs? Have you thought about that? Oh, you have trips to Bali. What if you get pregnant before that? It was just like a lot. So I don't know if anyone else has struggled with this. I don't even want to say struggled, but like fought this off almost, like combated this with their parents. And I go back and forth because I'm like, I know they mean well. I know that they love me and they're just worried. And the biological clock, sure, I guess, is ticking. Like, I'm not in any rush to have kids, but I also don't want to be too old when I have kids. But what is too old? And that's something that I go back and forth on internally too. I mean, turning 30 scientifically, my years do get more numbered as I age with when it is the most safe and optimal to have kids. But I think of having kids and I'm like, I can't wrap my mind around it. And I have so many friends that have kids and I'm always asking them a billion questions about what it's like being a mom. Do you feel like you lost yourself? How do you balance it? What is birth like? I mean, I always have a million questions because I think just now people are starting to talk about that whole phase of life so much more and just shed more light on the subject. But yeah, I mean, I know my parents are well intended, but it just puts this like whole pressure on me. And then I feel like I'm future tripping and I'm living in the future. And I'm like, I just turned 30. Like, just give me a second. I just started dating this guy. Give me a second. And they worry that I don't prioritize these things or I'm not thinking about these things. And then I'm like, okay, well, I am talking about these things with my boyfriend. We are figuring it out. But how about you just like let us figure this out? And we're good. We're fabulous. We're probably going to live together after this next year and figure out where we're going to live. But that's for us to figure out. And I have a hard time setting that boundary with my family because I am so close with my family. And he laughs because, I mean, my brother does the same thing. Like, he has 2 brothers. He doesn't tell his parents anything. I tell my parents everything. And my brother does not tell my parents anything either. So I don't know. It's just funny because I'm so used to oversharing with them. But yeah, if you are home for the holidays and you're listening to this and you are getting grilled by your parents, you're not alone. Even though I view my parents as very chill, open-minded people, which they are, they still really drilled that one into me while I was home. So that was not fun. And they also had a ton of questions, of course, as I feel like everyone does, about where we're going to live, like where my boyfriend and I will move. And that's another really hard thing because I don't want to live in Alabama, but my family's there and his family's there. So that's a conversation that we're trying to have and that I also ask so many of my friends about because I know that in theory, having kids at some point is so much easier with family than without family. And I don't want to be the reason to tear him from his family, but I've also never seen myself moving back to Alabama. Like before I met him, that was never an option. I was hoping that my parents would figure out where they wanted to be once my brother and I settled down, and then they would move somewhere closer to us. And so I just haven't really put that much thought into it until now. And now I'm really having to conceptualize that. And it's really hard when I have this opportunity in front of me to be close to my parents, like geographically, because I feel like that's what everyone does. Everyone moves closer to their parents when they settle down and when they're ready to have kids. But I'm like, I love where I live so much. I don't want to settle down ever. I want to always live a fun life and like do everything I want to do. So I have a hard time wrapping my mind around that, like about not being selfish because I know both sides of the coin are possible. I also have this insane fear, which is not so insane because it's a very real thing, of losing myself when I one day have children. And I think living in Colorado and living close to nature and close to the mountains would allow me to keep that piece of myself because living out here, I've never known happiness like I do. I've never experienced joy and like this inner child, just like jubilance that I have when I'm playing outside and when I'm skiing and hiking and camping with my friends. And the people out here and the lifestyle, it's something that I don't think I can backtrack on. I think if I had lived in the Southeast this entire time, like after Atlanta, which is where I lived after college, if I had moved somewhere else, then I think it would have been easy peasy for me to move back to Alabama. But living here, yeah, I don't really see another way of life. And when I go to these places, I crave more. Like when I'm visiting or if I'm home for a long period of time or in the South for a long period of time, I'm always craving more. I always want more out of life. And I don't know how to go back from that. I think it would be easy for me to live that life if that's all I know, because it's still an amazing life. But for me personally, I just need more and I would always crave more. And so I think there would be a hole somewhere for me. So, anyways, we're trying to navigate that. And my parents just really stressed me out about it, even though I wasn't super stressed because I'm such a believer that I'm the luckiest girl in the world and that the universe will figure it out. So I really, truly don't worry about it at all. But my parents made me stressed about it. And also just I felt like I was 40 all of a sudden. Like they were talking about all this shit and I'm like, I literally just turned 30. Now you made me feel like my life is already evaporated and gone. But other than that, my trip home was really nice. My dad does portions of the Appalachian Trail with one of his friends for like a week or 2 weeks at a time where he backpacks and hikes and starts where he left off. So he's been doing that for a couple years now. And so he did that with one of our family friends. So my mom and I had a little girls' weekend. We went to Nashville, saw Sturgill Simpson, which was really fun, and stayed there overnight. And then had a little spa night the next night, watched like this Grateful Dead docu-series that has now made me listen to Grateful Dead nonstop since I've been home. Like, I can't listen to anything else. It's super weird. I don't know if it's like a coping mechanism because I've been struggling mentally and it's nostalgic for me because I grew up listening to it because my mom's obsessed. But regardless, I literally can't turn it off. It's an obsession. But anyways, after the week at home, which I won't be home back in Huntsville for I don't even know how long. I can't tell you the next time I'll be there, which is so weird. But then once I left, I went to New Jersey to visit my grandparents. So I went there for a week. So yeah, it was a nice little week. I don't know when I'm going to be back in Huntsville at my parents', which is so weird. But I mean, I really only go home very rarely because it's so hard to travel from here. And now that it's ski season, I'll be so busy with work. And every time I leave, I get so sad. Like the last couple of years, I cry every single time I leave my parents, which is hilarious. But I just love them so much. But I left them to go then visit my grandparents. I have this new thing. I'm trying to visit them twice a year. I'm so lucky to still have my grandparents in my life. And if you have your grandparents in your life, and you're listening right now, I always say this. This is a reminder to call your grandparents. Call them, visit them, text them, email them, keep in touch with them, send them photos of the things that you've been up to because our grandparents, they love us and they want to be in our lives. They want to know what's going on. And I think after COVID too, at least for my grandparents, it really affected them negatively. I mean, they're so much less mobile now because they were sitting inside for so long that their bones and their joints don't work the same way that they used to. And they've regressed to a degree that now they're more content, just like not doing much when they used to be so active. And I found this last time I was there too. And I love the time I spent with my grandparents. They're on my mom's side. I'm super thankful that I have such a close relationship to them and that I get to visit them. And it's not weird. Like we have so much to talk about. We have so much to do. And I genuinely love, 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 love my visits there. Like I always wish they were longer. I'm never like dying to leave. So we went shopping, we watched movies, I went on lots of runs. I also got to kind of cheat and experience fall in Colorado because it's my favorite season. And then I got to see the leaves change and experience fall again on the East Coast when I was in New Jersey and New York and in Alabama. So I got to have it like 3, 4 times. But the weather was beautiful. I went on lots of runs. I got the most insane sty in my eye. And if you're watching, I still have it. I'm hoping this hat kind of covers it up. It was so big that it literally turned my eye inside out. Like my eyelid came out and you could see like the red of my eyelid. It was so fucking bad. And I still have a bump and it's so big. And now my eyelashes aren't growing where they're supposed to. And I've been so busy genuinely and so stressed that I have not had time to take care of it or do anything about it. I either need to get it drained or like put more hot compresses on it and see if I can get it to ease down on its own. But oh my God, it was so painful while I was there and that freaking blew. But also my grandparents' eyesight is not so great. So I feel like they could like barely even see it, which is pretty hysterical. But let's see, what else did we do? I'm looking at my notes. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all we did. It's definitely a bummer seeing how much they've slowed down because it just reminds me that time's passing and they're getting older. My grandfather has, I think every time I go, his memory's worse. He's got dementia, some form of it. And so, I mean, you'll talk about something and then 5 minutes later, he'll bring it up again, which is hard. But I mean, you just kind of work around it. But I just feel bad because they're by themselves when I'm not there. My brother just moved to New York. So luckily he's nearby now to hang out with them. But yeah, it just makes me sad, them in that house by themselves. But I try to encourage them when I'm there, like, to get them out of the house. We look at old photo albums. I've seen videos and stuff on TikTok where people play like question games with their grandparents, which I don't think my grandparents honestly would ever go for, but just, trying to start organic, authentic conversation and ask them questions because when I was younger, I didn't give a shit about their stories. And now I want to know everything. And some things, I mean, my grandpa's told me the same stories over and over again about his childhood and about his past, about him skiing in Alaska, about him being in the army, his first job. I mean, I've heard those so many times because I think that's all he can really remember. So some of that stuff is too late and that's lost and in his own mind that I cannot access. So this is another reminder if you do have your grandparents in your life, try to, stimulate them and get them to do things and get them to have conversations with you and talk about things because you will never regret the time that you've spent and the very real present moments that you had with them. They're just so special and I love them so much. After my grandparents, I went to New York. The primary reason for me going to New York is my current roommate and my roommate from last year, Maddie and Maeve, ran the New York Marathon and it was so fucking sick. I mean, the energy was unmatched. I was so hungover that day, but like, it was just the coolest thing ever. We like tracked them around the city and saw them and made signs and they freaked out and cried and we freaked out and the whole thing was just so freaking cool. It almost made me want to run a marathon, but trust me, I will never be doing that. I just don't think my legs could handle it. I think my knees would give out after all my injuries and random shit that's gone on. But that was really fun. So that was the primary reason we went. My roommates came up for that as well from Breck. And so we all got to be together in the city and just like have a time. And I stayed with my other friend, Rachel. Her and her boyfriend, Danny, just moved to New York. So we stayed in the Upper East Side and that was so beautiful. They were right by Central Park. And when I first got there, and I always do this when I'm in New York, especially, but also like anytime I'm traveling by myself or I'm in a new place, I put my AirPods in, or sometimes in New York, I don't do that because I like the background noise. Like I like to eavesdrop on people and I just like put on a main character playlist and I walk for hours and I just explore. And I've been in New York a million times. I love it so much. The energy there, of course, is unmatched, but I just wanted to like walk around and take it in and like ground myself when I got there. So I did that for a while on Friday and on Saturday. And then on Saturday, I went with my brother who just moved to New York to go apartment shopping, which was so eye-opening, the amount that you pay for a dirty little shoebox in a basement. And it's so funny too. My brother is 27 and the only things that he cares about when he's looking at apartments are the rooftop and the capability of said rooftop to have parties. He could live on bunk beds with him and his roommates and all live in one room and have like a hole in the ground for a bathroom. And I swear he would not care as long as he had a rooftop to his party. So that's just boys are so funny. But it was so great. We got to spend time together and we just walked around for hours, looked at apartments, and it was so nice getting to see my brother. And then I went out that night with my roommates and their friends and had such a time. We went to a club and I'm just like not a club person. Like obviously it was so fun because I was with my friends and we were hammered, but like, I don't know. I like a club if the music's good, but New York and a lot of cities I feel like are like this are into that like vibey house music that has like no words and like no beat. So you're just kind of like all bobbing and I pretend like I'm having a good time and I wish that I liked that kind of music, but I'm like anytime there was like a word or like a lyric in the music, we were like, yeah. And then it would go back to these like lo-fi tech beats and we're like, okay, here we go again. Like no drops, no anything. I mean, and again, it was still so much fun, but I'm just like not that kind of club person. I would so much rather like go to a bar and have a conversation with people instead of like get bottle service and just like do the whole shebang. And there's also fucking creepy weirdos as far as men in clubs, like just gross entitled men that have a table and they think they can like buy you and buy your time, which sure, I will, sneak onto your table, steal your alcohol, but you cannot touch me and then I'm going to leave. So that's just that. So yeah, New York was a blast. Then I went back to Birmingham for one more week. This is my last stint, and I was so ready to come home at this point. I was so homesick and so over living in a suitcase. And then I came back to Breck. Then, while I was in Birmingham, the election happened, and that threw me for a loop. And I have some thoughts on this. Probably going to lose followers because you can't really talk about anything without, if someone's doesn't agree with you or isn't on your side. It seems, no one can agree, which maybe I am part of the problem because there's so much that I do not agree with on the opposing side. And I live in Colorado, so I think I forget that there are people that support Trump in the world because it is a predominantly liberal place. My mom is also super liberal. She's incredibly political to a degree that sometimes I think it turns me away from it because I try my best to see things from a bipartisan perspective. I follow so many news sources on Instagram and on TikTok that are completely non-biased, that post about both sides with zero opinion. And if they do show an opinion, it's like opinion article and they do opinions from both sides. Because unfortunately, with social media and with algorithms and with there being so many options, people only listen to and watch things that agree with their way of thinking, which just comes back to it being such a divisive thing. But the election took me out. I cried a lot that day when I found out the verdict. And it was a really sad day. And I think no matter what, God forbid something were to happen to me, I think I'll be okay no matter who the president is. Me personally, like, I'm not talking about my future children. I'm not talking about anyone other than myself. I think I will be fine as everything stands right now with my health and with everything that I've been through up until this point. I cannot predict the future. But what really breaks my heart is the people that aren't going to be fine, the people that are going to be affected, the people that have been sexually abused and see a president that is a convicted felon and also, has been charged and accused of sexual assault from tons and tons of women. And the way that he's spoken about women and the way that he's spoken about Mexicans and Black people and all sorts of divisive things. And at the end of the day, when I vote, I'm not just voting for me, I'm also voting for other people. And to me, human rights and feeling safe and spoken for and valued in our country is so much more important to me than gas prices and things that seem trivial when the biggest thing, when you think about like, what's his name, Maslow or whatever, the hierarchy of needs, I think safety's and that feeling of security is pretty major. If we're feeling like we're being led by someone that doesn't satisfy those needs, I can't imagine how that feels. And for anyone in this country that is a minority or that has had any experience with sexual abuse or fears for their lives or fears for their rights, that is so incredibly valid. And since the election, that day after, I cried so much. I was on social media. I should not have been. I barely worked. I didn't do anything like pretty much that whole week. I just felt like I was in this weird like alternate universe. And being in Alabama when those are the beliefs that I have, like definitely did not help. But it was so interesting because I saw so many people post either like a Bible verse, which I'm Jewish, so that really doesn't mean anything to me, or some kind of like, I think that just because like whoever you voted for, like politics shouldn't be so divisive, like who you vote for should not decide who your friends are and blah, 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 blah. Anyone that posted that voted for Trump or just didn't vote. And I think what people fail to understand is yes, that can change your opinion about someone. If you are someone that feels marginalized under a certain presidency, then if you feel like one of your peers is voting against your rights or is voting against your own autonomy, of course that's going to change your opinion about them. But if you don't feel that way and you are in this like privileged pool of people that won't be affected, then of course you think that politics shouldn't be divisive. And of course you think that it shouldn't ruin relationships because you're not going to be affected. You're untouchable. And that is so tone deaf to me. And I've seen comments and people talk about, like liberal babies and like all these people crying and all these people upset. That is like real fear and real sadness. And that is so valid. And I'm not saying Kamala is great either. Like, I think politicians to their core are corrupt. I think that they are power hungry. I think they're money hungry. And I think they give us empty promises and tell us what we want to hear. It's all a show. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous at the end of the day. But of course, but regardless, it's I don't know. It's so sad. And I saw a tweet and it was like, America hates women so much that they'll elect a convicted rapist and felon. It was something along those lines. And it really is true. I mean, being a woman in America, we are so privileged, of course. There are so many countries where women are beaten, where there's violence against them, where they're marginalized. But there's a lot of things I don't know about politics. There's a lot of things I don't know about this economy. And I'm not here to get in a political argument. And I'm not saying all this to attack anyone. I'm not saying all this to attack anyone's beliefs. This is purely just my opinion. And I also want and I wish that the world is more open to changing your mind. I think people feel so convicted towards a certain opinion because once they're public about it, they feel like they can't go back. And I'm sure there's a ton of corruptness on the Democratic side as well. I'm not saying Democrats are perfect. I'm not saying Republicans are perfect either. It's this like Trumpism. That's what's really scary. It's not Republicans. It's him. It's how he speaks about people. And that's what is really, really scary to me. And especially, and as a woman, that's all I can really speak on, right? Like, I am white. I am privileged. I come from an amazing family. I've had so many things handed to me in my life. Like, I don't struggle like other people do. I have struggles, but not even close to what other people deal with. And to think of someone that's gay or someone that's transgender or someone that's Black or someone that's Latino or whatever community that you're a part of, I just can't imagine how scary that is to see your neighbors and people in your country that you are also a part of rally together to vote for someone that has spoken against you or said disgusting things about you. Like, it's just a moral thing to me. And that's what I can't wrap my head around, despite what the policies are. And I think that's why the Democrats lost anyway, was because of economics and immigration. And the Kamala campaign was so fucking focused on like being Brad and all these trendy things that I think they did miss the mark on a lot. And I know she spent a fuck ton of money, which God knows where that was. And I also think, like, why was Joe Biden even pretending like he was going to run for president? He was so old. He should have given that candidacy to someone way earlier on so they had more time to campaign. I mean, there are a million things that are wrong with both sides. I'm not saying that there isn't. But to me, it comes down to, and I read this somewhere, it is personal. You have a difference in morals, and I do feel differently about you. You cannot tell me you love me and then try to take my rights away. And I think that's so valid. Coming back to why people are so upset and why people are crying, at least give people the space to be upset. No one's contesting the election. No one is saying that Trump did not win fair and square. I think he did. And I think people were probably tired of the way things were. And that's totally fine and totally valid. But why him? Like, it's not Republicans I have an issue with. It's just Trump. Like, I think he is just truly such a horrible person, and it makes me so freaking sad. And I don't really speak about this stuff publicly. I feel on my podcast I have a safe space to do that, and I hope that I don't get attacked for this because, again, I'm really not trying to have like a political argument with anyone in my DMs. This is truly just like a morality issue. This is how I feel in my heart about these issues. And maybe this is a very delusional take because I just care so much about people and about their feelings and about how they feel, feeling that safety and security in our country, like we said. But also, as a woman, one of the biggest hills that I will die on is on pro-choice and on abortion. And I think that won Kamala a lot of points in her campaign. And I've seen, videos of Trump backtracking on, some things that he said in the past. But I also think it's such a cop out. I see politicians talk about IVF. I see politicians talk about abortion only in rape or incest or like the most horrible ways you can imagine. And that's when it's appropriate. But I think that's such a cop out because you're not talking about abortion and you're not normalizing it as a form of healthcare, which it totally is. And it should be the woman's choice. And with pro-choice, I wrote this whole manifesto when I was on the plane from New York back to Birmingham. And it's just something that I feel so strongly about and I have for a really long time. And being from Alabama in a more religious, Southern, conservative, pro quote unquote life stance. And I say quote unquote because if you're pro-life, you're not actually advocating for life. You're advocating for the unborn and against the mother, but that's a whole nother thing. But I wrote this whole manifesto on my laptop and I wasn't going to post it. My mom was like, do not post this because I always post shit about how I, feel about different political situations. And she was like, you really shouldn't. You're going to lose a lot of followers. You're going to lose a lot of business, which I did. And I knew that that was going to happen. But I wanted to read it on the podcast, my little thought bubble on abortion, and then I will move on from this whole topic because it's making me sad and it feels very heavy. My thoughts on abortion as a young woman. This is a very emotional, personal subject to me. If you are a woman, keep listening. This affects us all. If you are a man, listen as well to better understand your role in all of this and how you can better advocate for the woman in your life. Roe v. Wade being overturned was a scary moment. I can remember where I was, what I was doing, and the insurmountable feeling that passed over me and so many of us. A Supreme Court decision that had its imperfections, but still kept our rights safer, gave us more autonomy over our own bodies, and aided in giving us more reproductive freedom. I'm not yet a mother, but I would love to have kids one day. The idea excites me, and I've always seen motherhood in my future. I'm also pro choice. I am pro giving women choices, for allowing individuals to make decisions about their own body and health, not a man in a room full of other men filling our womb with politics. Your story is not mine. Your religion is not mine. Your beliefs are not mine. Your God is not my God, and your body is not mine, nor is it any of my business. I see tons of politicians using rape and incest as a blanket to advocate for abortions. These are horrific to imagine, someone going through this, and I can't fathom. I do think, though, that this is quite a cowardly argument, saying that women must endure the most unimaginable tragedy to deserve the right to choose. That still leaves a stigma for abortion as a whole and doesn't do the issue justice. Only being okay with such treatments in certain situations negates the issue. The wrongful deaths taking place in our country, the lack of access to reproductive health care, the withholding of treatment from doctors out of fear of the law, and the fundamental right to have autonomy over our own bodies. So, for my pro life folks listening to this, here's the thing. Do I expect you to change your mind from my own thoughts? No. You're absolutely entitled to your own opinion, and I respect that. I know this is a very divisive, painful, personal topic, so rather, I will challenge you. If you claim the pro life title, then please show us. Advocate for the living while advocating for the unborn. When you finish picketing at Planned Parenthood, protest your local elected official's office. Protest for a higher minimum wage, for accessible childcare and daycares. Insist on higher taxes on your income to go to public school systems, welfare, and sex education. Advocate for free and accessible contraceptives. Donate to organizations doing research on women's health and reproductive systems, which is a very underfunded study. Local orphanages, and better yet, adopt. There are hundreds of thousands of children whom you advocate be brought into this world that are waiting for a home. Once these children are born, they need help. They were forced into this world against the will of the mother, whatever her situation may be. So let's come together and help these mothers, these families, and these infants whose lives you so fiercely love. If we are pro life, then we must support that life. Please understand, I don't have all the answers. This is simply my opinion. I am not a doctor. I don't know where the line should be drawn. I am not yet a mother, and I hope I'm lucky enough to be one someday. Motherhood has to be one of the most beautiful experiences there is, and I've seen my friends become mothers, and I've been in awe. I speak on this for my sisters and friends and women that I don't know yet. Everyone knows someone that has had an abortion, whether you're aware of it or not. I can't imagine being forced to share such intimate, raw, painful, private life events in order to justify healthcare. And as a woman who has been lucky to live a life without any of these very common traumatic experiences surrounding sex, pregnancy, and healthcare, I speak up so others can stay quiet. You're all so brave. I'm so proud of you. So that's what I wrote on Instagram. I wanted to share it here too because, yeah, the pro life, pro choice argument is one that is very close to my heart and essentially what I voted on as my main issue. And common arguments are it's a state by state issue. Trump had nothing to do with it. He is the one that elected the Supreme Court officials that then overturned Roe v. Wade. It was because of his elected officials that Roe v. Wade was overturned. And yes, it is a state issue, but that domino effect is where it started. It started with him. It started with his beliefs and his beliefs against women and their autonomy over their bodies. Another common argument is, well, the government forced me to wear masks or get vaccines. I'm not arguing that. I'm not saying that was right. That has nothing to do with abortions and that has nothing to do with women's health care. The whole mask mandate and the COVID vaccine situation, which I think is another reason why Trump won, because I don't think that was done correctly at all from the government, and I completely understand people's frustrations with that and all the lies that were told throughout that whole process. It has nothing to do with that. So that's not even an argument that is not in this space. When I did post about that, I got DMs and comments, rebuttaling my argument about abortion with that. And it's two completely different things. So it has nothing to do with that. So that's all I'm going to say. I'll also say that my boyfriend was so fucking supportive throughout this whole thing. I called him crying while I was in New Jersey at my grandparents because I just it felt so heavy and we hadn't really talked about politics yet. And it being such a personal subject, I was really scared to talk about it. And we had such an amazing open conversation. And it honestly just made me love him more. And he made me feel so safe and really like he would do anything for me and he would stand up for me regardless of, any political differences that we did have. And he was so amazing to me during election week too. He came home from work and just like let me cry to him and he listened to me and we had conversations. And I think I opened his mind a lot too. I mean, he's a white male. He has never thought about a lot of these things that I think about and that I worry about. And so he's super receptive and open to all the conversations that we've had. And I feel really lucky that we've gotten to go through that together. And I'm so thankful that he was so kind to me throughout it all. And other than the election, I'll wrap up my little timeline. We went to Charlie Crockett in Chattanooga while I was in Birmingham. Super fun. Other than that, we just chilled. I cried a lot over the election and felt kind of weird. We went a lot of long walks and worked out. And then we said our goodbyes and I came back up to Breck and I've been back ever since. So good to be back. Like I said, I haven't been drinking, really just been taking it easy. It's been so long since I've had weekends where I've had no visitors, no weddings, no travel. And these last 2 weekends have been bliss. I mean, waking up in my bed on a Saturday with no one next to me and no one to entertain and no plans has been seriously so incredible. I'm just trying to like practice gratitude for it in the present moment because I know it's very fleeting, especially in ski season when we have visitors literally every single weekend. I've also been going back and forth a lot to Boulder. I had 3 Boulder pop-ups and 1 pop-up in Breck since I've been back in the last few weeks. In the winter, that is when I go pedal to the metal and I'm doing like so many events, so much travel, so many pop-ups. It's the busiest time for me. And sales have been honestly horrible. So I didn't really feel like I had the luxury of just kicking back and chilling the last 2 weeks, which is why I wanted to like hit the road and do some pop-ups. And I was so exhausted and got really sick. So I wasn't thrilled that I had planned these for myself, but I love going to Boulder. The girls are so kind and the pop-ups were so amazing. And now we have come to our part of the program where I talk about work and I'm going to bitch about it because it has been the worst fucking thing ever. I've had so much anxiety about work recently and that is so not normal for me. Like I'm talking like debilitating anxiety, heart palpitations, cannot sleep, affecting like seeping into like everything that I do, like just really, really affecting me wholeheartedly. Like I almost wonder if like all of this negativity around work made me sick because I haven't gotten sick in so long. And these last 2 weekends, especially this past weekend, I worked the entire weekend, which I never do. I do not work on weekends. That is a huge boundary that I set for myself. And so the fact that I worked both weekends just shows like how fucked this is recently and like how busy that I've been. And it just makes me feel even worse. But yeah, it's been a really, really hard period. I had one of our full-time girls unexpectedly put in her even less than 2 weeks for her last day to be on Black Friday. So I had to change my flights in the Southeast this past week, and I'm having to go to Atlanta, pack and ship all of our Black Friday and Cyber Monday orders, and then pack up our entire office and move it to a fulfillment center in North Carolina, which up until this point, I thought she was doing. So that's been really, really hard. And just has like also taken like a huge personal hit on me. I don't think I expected that. And it just feels because my business is so small and it's so personal, it just felt really personal. So I cried about that a lot when I found out, like just this past week. It's been very recent. So that also just added a ton of work to my schedule, preparing for the holidays, preparing for Rebellious Ski Club launch 2025 and the new manufacturer and dealing with all that. I've now taken on a whole nother layer of work. So it just put a lot of pressure on me and I have felt really numb recently, which I hate. And I know that I go into that mode when I'm feeling super stressed and I just have to kind of exist and survive. So that's been me recently. And yeah, I don't know. In the last few months, I've just felt like I've been failing in like every aspect. It's been like L after L after L. And I keep telling myself, this is just temporary. This is just temporary. It's just a season. It's just a season. And I've had hard periods in work before. And this time last year, I was going through a really hard time, but my whole life was kind of in shambles. And now it's just my work. I really do love my life so much. And I know that it's temporary, but how long can you tell yourself it's temporary before it actually just gets better? Like, I feel like I've just been in this wheel of like putting my head down and trying and trying and trying to push through it. And I think and I hope that 2025, I just looked at the time that I've been recording this podcast and it said 111. So that's a little angel number wink if I've ever seen one, that it's going to get better. But anyways, yeah, I've just been trying to, pull myself out of it. And I'm definitely getting tired of having to repeat myself over and over again and telling myself that it's only temporary. But yeah, sales have been really shitty. We tried to do ads and they were doing really well for a while. And then our account got hacked, like our Meta account. And then our ads were in the shitter and our sales were so low that we couldn't even run ads because the ads had nothing to work off of. So that was a really shitty conversation. And I feel like everything sucks. I've been feeling burnt out. I've been feeling lost. I've had these internal thoughts where I'm like, do I even have what it takes to be a CEO? Have I gotten to this point by just going through the motions and kind of faking it? And now, that I'm making bigger decisions and scaling our company and moving things to a 3PL, like, does this mean that I just don't have what it takes anymore? And I know to my core that that's not true, but I can't help but let those thoughts creep in. Like the imposter syndrome is very, very real. And it's funny too, because I have so many friends in the apparel space or with small businesses that are totally different than mine. And I feel like all of my other friends are thriving. Like I feel like everyone else that I know is doing so well in their businesses or in their craft. And that also really affected me. This was like a month or two ago. I was just like on Instagram doing the whole comparison thing, like, fuck, everyone is doing so good. And I hate feeling like that. I hate feeling like I'm not rooting for other people. And I almost feel like the universe put all these insanely successful people in my life to show me that, like, first of all, check yourself, bitch. Like, you should still be rooting for all these people. Their success does not hinder your success. Everyone should be winning. So go cheer those people on, which I do. Anytime I'm feeling down on myself, I try to go out of my way to make sure I'm cheering everyone on in my life, because I shouldn't be taking that out on other people just because I'm not doing well. And I also think the universe puts that right in front of me to show me what I could be, show me that, if this person has this, then your success is right around the corner. This is very possible for you too. And so I try to, switch that in my head. And I have been clinging on, like even just now where it said 111 on the screen, any angel numbers, any winks from the universe, any like synchronicities at all. I have been like searching for them everywhere. I'm like looking everywhere, like, okay, this is going to be the day my luck turns around. Like, oh, this is going to be the day my luck turns around. Like, okay, I saw the sign from the universe. Everything's about to turn in my favor. And then it keeps not. And things keep happening and bad things keep happening. And of course, everything bad happens for a reason. And I'm sure I'm going to find, purpose in this whole season of life. And I can't wait to reflect on it. And I can't wait to talk about it later once I've learned the lesson, because bitch, I'm done. I don't want to learn any more lessons. I'm fucking over it. I am good. I've learned. I'm good. So let's move on. Let's go back to being successful, please. Please, because I am dying. So yeah, that's what I've been going through, just dealing with the unknown, dealing with the bad, and hoping that by 2025 and by the holidays finish that I haven't fucked everything up. I haven't made all the wrong choices, and that I will come back and be successful and be the CEO and the leader and the founder that I know that I am in my heart, because it definitely feels like I've strayed away from that. But I am annoyingly positive even when I am probably depressed. So I'm trying to find the positive in this, and there have been so many amazing things that have been happening in my life, and I'm trying to hold on to that little sliver of optimism and opportunities that have come up in the last, season and this hard time and in recent times. So I want to talk about the positive things a little bit, because it is not all doom and gloom, even though it does feel like it for me. I'm trying to put it out and trying to put out positive things. The first thing, and we haven't gotten to talk about this, is the matchmaking event that I co-hosted with my friend Jeff in Denver. This was a whole bar crawl matchmaking event that I started doing these stories on Ron Rebellious where I'd post singles, and I did one for Denver. That was the first one we did. And I don't do it anymore because we didn't get enough traction on it. But Jeff, who was one of the guys that I posted, was like, hey, I host bar crawls. Like, would you ever want to do a singles bar crawl together? And I was like, yes. So the weekend before I left on that whole 6-week extravaganza, I hosted a singles bar crawl, and it was so fucking fun. It was so fucking successful. So many people were making out of the bar, coming up to me and being like, thank you so much for hosting this. I've never done anything like this before. I loved it so much. People were coming up to me and they were leaving with a guy or a girl that they met at the event, and they were like, hey, we're getting out of here to go get a drink somewhere else, or we're getting out of here to go get dinner, or we're getting out of here to go fuck. Like, it was seriously the best thing ever. And if I was single, that is what I would want. I wish that there were more things like that, more community events where I can meet people and there's not this like pressure of like a one-on-one date with someone random. You can bring your friends, you can meet people and not have the pressure of like needing to be romantic. It can just be a friendship if you're not jiving with them. But I love cultivating community, and I talk about that all the time. And I love even more getting people laid and cultivating romantic connection too, because girl, I have been single the majority of my life. I fucking get it. And I wish someone was throwing actually like cool matchmaking events and not fucking weird bar crawls that I see on Facebook. Like, you could not catch me dead at those, but this one had like a lot of hot, single, cool people. So it was such a success. And it also reminds me of one of my powers, I think, which is that I feel like I'm a connector. And I read about connectors years ago in one of Malcolm Gladwell's books. I can't remember which, but a connector is essentially, if you think about all of your relationships in your life, the majority of those relationships stem from one person. There's one person that you have in your life that connects you with other people, whether it's in work, friendship, romantic. There is just someone that knows a lot of people and is naturally, pulling people in and creating community wherever they go. That is what I hope to do. And that is what my deluded brain thinks that I do. And so, similar to when I'm podcasting and I feel like I'm in my flow state, when I'm doing anything where I'm making connections with other people, like authentic connections, or when I am the facilitator of that connection and connecting other people, that's where I'm thriving. And that's where I really feel like my future is. So I'm excited. I want to host more events, maybe do like a ski matchmaking event at some point in the future. But it was amazing. And I'm so happy we did that. Other than that, even though Ron Rebellious, I feel like has been in the shitter, my personal brand has been growing, which has been really cool. I did lose a ton of followers on both accounts from the whole abortion thing that I posted about. But other than that, I've been really growing in all facets of TikTok, Instagram, and I started a YouTube channel, which is very exciting. I don't think I'd started that the last time I podcast, but I'm not sure. And I'm really proud of myself. I remember in May or June when I was on the phone with my friend TK and she was like, she's an influencer and a business owner and a podcaster and a million things. And she was just giving me unsolicited business advice like she always does. And she was like, dude, you have to be an influencer. You have to start growing your personal brand, growing your personal account, all the things. And I was so scared to do that. I was like, I don't have any free time. You make time. You always make time. If there is no other lesson in this podcast than that. If you are thinking of starting something, but you are overwhelmed with everything that you've got going on in your life, you can always make time. I've shifted so many things around in my life for this podcast, for my personal brand, for my new YouTube channel. And I cannot imagine a world where I don't have these things now and my life is still so full and I am way too busy and probably work too much, but I made the time. So if there is something that you're thinking about starting, but you don't think you have time, I promise you do. It's just about reprioritizing things and changing the way you do things, which I have had to do to grow these other parts of my business and of my brand, which I consider myself and everything a part of the brand. So it's all, working towards a common goal. And yeah, so my personal brand has been thriving. YouTube is there. It exists. It is so fucking hard. Kudos to everyone that does YouTube. It's just a totally new way of recording content, of storytelling. I have a camera that I'm like so terrified to use. I use it sometimes, but I probably should use it more. And then in the interim, I just use my phone. My vlogs are shitty. Okay. They're not good. So I'm really sorry. And I also want people to subscribe just so I have more subscribers and I'm getting more views and like learning more. If you have any feedback and you've watched my YouTube, I would love for you to tell me because I need feedback. Constructive criticism or just criticism and telling me that it's shit is totally fine because I know it is, but I'm trying to get better. Every vlog I hope gets better, but it is a little cringy having all of that out there. I'm like, oof, this is not very good, but it's the only way to learn. So I'm enjoying being a novice in a new field. And that's really all I have currently. I mean, right now I'm in like the throes of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and the holidays. So, and I'm going to be vlogging all of that. I'm going to try to at least because it's going to be such a shit show trying to get all that together. And I've been, working with the new manufacturer for all of our hoodies to try to get it at a better price so I can wholesale them, which has been like such a horrible, horrible experience. But that's really all like the current things that are going on. And then as far as future things, I do have a lot of exciting things coming. So first thing is we are growing our team. I said our full-time girl who I love so dearly is leaving us and I'm super bummed about that. But we are adding a new member to our team. So I did hire a virtual assistant type beat back in, I don't even know when that was, in August or September. And she's been so fucking amazing. She's actually a friend of mine. And like, I would not be standing here without her. Like, no way. She has totally taken the slack. She is so good at things that I am so bad at. And she has so much experience from my other friend's company that it's just been so seamless and so incredible. And I'm so freaking thankful for her. And we're also adding another member to our team coming soon, which I'll talk about next time I do the solo episode because I don't have a ton of information on it yet, but I'm really excited about it and I'm excited to share the process because it's something that if you're a business owner, I think it'll also help a lot of other people. So I'll share that, but I'm really trying to hire around my faults and around things that I just need help with, which yeah, no fucking shit. I don't know why I just said that. That was so stupid. So I'm getting a lot of help with fulfillment, with logistics, with sales, inventory, reordering, product stuff. I'm going back and forth and kind of being the liaison with the manufacturer and with sourcing. And then I'm also looking for more help and I'm getting more help with video editing and just really pushing out content. I have so much content and I'm always taking videos and photos of everything that I do, but then I oftentimes don't have time to actually do anything with it. And I want to grow on TikTok. I want to grow on YouTube and I want to grow on Pinterest. That's a really big thing for us in 2025. So that was my most recent hire. which is, still being onboarded and isn't quite with us just yet, but will be in the new year, is helping us just grow on every platform and just like throwing a ton of content every single day consistently at every single platform, which I just don't have time to do and also run a business. So I'm really excited to get help on that. We've got new Rebellious Ski Club coming hopefully very soon. It has been so delayed due to us working with a new manufacturer. This year I don't want to say it is a scratch, but like it's not going to be what I was planning on it to be. I wanted it to be this like huge unveiling and it'd be fucking epic. I think that's going to be next year because some of the things that we're working on, I want to be perfect. And we've gotten samples back for certain pieces of clothing that I won't spoil yet. And they just aren't perfect. And I'm hoping that I can launch them this ski season. But if I can't, I'm really trying to make an effort to start planning for Rebellious Ski Club 2026 this season, which is what most companies do. I just haven't been this caught up to do that yet. So that next season, we are really going to fucking like hit the ground running and have like the most cool, insane products you've ever seen in your life. But we still will be launching new Rebellious Ski Club stuff very, very soon. We're also working with a new store in Breckenridge called Lace and Lariat, which we will be in hopefully in December or January. But I had a meeting with them last week and that was really fun. And I also think, with the universe kicking me down, it's also really lifting me up. I've gotten so many new opportunities recently and things that last year felt like pipe dreams, either collaborations or opportunities in different spaces locally and in other ski towns where I'll be able to do pop-ups like all season long. So that's really sick. Just connections are everything and the people you meet are everything. And everyone's been so kind and yeah, I've gotten my foot in the door in a lot of new places and we're going to do a lot of meetups, new pop-ups, and a lot of stuff locally in Breckenridge this year, which I didn't really do last ski season. So I'm excited about that. I'm really looking forward to 2025 just being settled and all of this newness and all of these changes we've been making for the last year are finally going to be implemented. And I'm hoping that all of these things that I'm doing now and all this shit that I've been taking will make 2025 and my future way more seamless and less work for me because I'm in my era of trying not to fucking work as hard. And I've been in that era, or I've been trying to be in that era, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. And the last thing that I'm really, really excited about is hosted weekends. So obviously I've, talked to y'all about the Bali trips that I'm hosting, the Greece trip that I'm hosting through a company called Trova Trip, which handles like big international trips. So then recently, and this is also, I think, the universe telling me that like community is really something that I should be focusing on and cultivating as part of my career. I've had two Airbnbs separately reach out to me about doing hosted weekends and in exchange for content in their homes in Breckenridge. So that's really cool. So I'm hosting, as of now, officially one weekend, possibly two weekends in Breckenridge. The first one is in January. The second one would probably be sometime in April. It'll be like 10 to 13 girls. And it's going to be like a Thursday through Sunday situation. So you get tickets. And I've been reaching out to a ton of like PR and lots of different companies. I'm going to do custom merch, all kinds of stuff. And so that's going to be really cool. And it excites me because that is what I love the most. It's essentially allowing me to just like be a camp counselor, talk to people all day, bring other people together. And again, be that connector, which I feel so strongly about. And I also feel strongly about it because community has always come super easy for me. I find it very easy to make connections with other people. And I'm not saying that in like a braggadocious way. I'm saying that in a way that I feel very lucky because in every move that I've made and every trip that I've been on by myself, I've always made really amazing friends. And every situation I go into, I'm like, I have enough friends. Which also I feel very lucky to say, I'm good. If I don't make any more forever friends, if I don't meet any more soulmates in my life, I'm fine because I'm good and I feel loved. And time again, I just keep meeting more and more incredible people. And I'm always open. I always, open my arms to new friendships and new people and new connections. So I say all that to say, I think that is why I meant to do these meetups and these hosted weekends and things. Because if I find it to be easy and other people don't, let me help you. Let me help you make friends. Let me help you create community wherever you live because making friends is so fucking hard. And I get that. And although I have not had that experience, I want to help you not have that experience and be, helpful to you. So that's been something that's been really cool in my recent professional life that I hope to continue to capitalize on. And speaking of cultivating community as the queen of segues, this brings us to the last portion of the podcast, which is me not talking about my updates on my life anymore. Don't worry, you are marked safe, but me just going over some random topics and things and notes that I had in my phone or in my journal that I wanted to share or questions that I had. And one question that I got during my time away was actually about friendship. And so I thought it would be a good time to talk about it because I was just talking about how I think I'm pretty good at making friends. But the question that I got in my DMs, I think it was like a month ago, was have you done a podcast about friendship? I feel like you're always in someone's wedding, and I would like to know how you maintain and create so many friendships, which is so real, so valid, and such a common experience, right? Like I'm not saying that I've always had it easy with friends. I've had friend breakups, I've had friendship woes, I've had really awkward, uncomfortable conversations, I've had tearful conversations. I mean, us girls talk about everything, so we can be quite emotional in the best way. But I love this question, and I really wanted to, touch on it and expand on it a little bit today, especially with talking about community. And I will say, if you follow me on my business account, Raw and Rebellious, you know that I do Sunday Scaries every single Sunday. And I get entries about going through breakups, but I also get a ton of like friendship things, like girls saying, I found out that there's a group text without me, or my friends intentionally didn't celebrate me for my birthday, or I had a friend break up last night and it was so painful. And friendship woes and breakups, I think sometimes hit harder than romantic breakups, or they just hit really hard in a completely different way. And, you can view them as new beginnings because it's the same thing as a romantic breakup. Like that person was not meant for your life, but holy fucking shit, it is so freaking painful. And I think of it as, when I've had friendship breakups in my life or really, really hard conversations, it's like almost like I'm shedding skin. Even when it's painful, sometimes it is a bit of a relief because deep down I knew that that person wasn't meant for me, or wasn't treating me well, or wasn't giving me anything positive, was only taking away or gossiping about other people, and just wasn't really adding value to my life anymore. And I think as you grow and you morph into who you want to become, those people in your life, if they're not meant for you, you can't like grow into who you're actually supposed to be until you let those people go, or until sometimes like they break up with you and they let you go. And as painful as it is, I cannot stress this enough. The people you surround yourself with are so fucking vital and so fucking important to who you are and what you accomplish and who you end up becoming and what you end up doing with your life. They are such a direct reflection. And I even think about, living with 5 girls in a house. I subconsciously imitate them so much. We all imitate each other. We take sayings from each other. We have inside jokes and even like mannerisms. There are different things that I'm like not even meaning to replicate from my friends, but I do. And luckily, for the most part, I feel like they're good things, but you subconsciously can also take in really negative things, and then you can outwardly project that on other people in your life. So I don't even know why I started talking about friendship breakups, because that is not at all what the question asked, but that's just my ADD brain. So there we go. So back to creating and maintaining friendships. And I know I wrote some stuff down. One thing I wrote, and I think this is a really big thing, is if you're moving to a new place, you're trying to grow your circle or change your friend group, treating making friends and maintaining those friendships like a job. Treat it with the utmost importance. And I am someone that's so chaotic, all over the place, ADD, as we know. I make it a part of my goals, a part of my to-do list. I make call lists every single week where I list friends that either I haven't caught up with or that I've texted recently that we need to catch up. And I make that a priority. And if I don't get to them, then it carries over to the next week. I treat it like it's a job and I cross it off once I've done it. And obviously, I don't think of it as a job because it's so much fun to talk to my friends. But as you get older, you get busier and busier, and your time spent with your friends and the leftover time that you have at the end of your day to catch up with someone and talk to someone becomes more and more scarce. So my first thing would be to treat it like a job. And you can, if you want to start with this, you can make a list of all of your friends and where they live. And once you have that list down and you can kind of see that visual, then start doing something about it. Start making plans. Okay, am I going to visit you? Are you going to visit me? What does that look like? Because when we get out of college, something that no one warns you about, or that you just don't really think about, is you go from having all of your friends all together in walking distance on the same schedules, going to classes together, and then going out, to everyone being spread out in their different lives. Now I'm 30. I have so many friends that are married with kids. That free time just gets more and more scarce. So you have to be super intentional about it. So make a list of everyone that's important to you, and then figure out ways, actionable items, and see them, call them, whatever it is. And of course that goes both ways, but you don't have to sit there and wait for someone to call you. You can call them, you can make the effort. And that's also just going to play into how you're perceived. If you want to be perceived as a good friend, sometimes it's you making the effort and sometimes it's you making the sacrifice. And I don't think it should be you all the time, because you're going to get burnt out. But I do think that if that is important to you, then you have to inconvenience yourself to do that. And that's the same thing in a relationship, treat others how you hope to be treated. And then for your friends that live in the same city, weekly hangouts, every other week hangouts, going for walks, getting your nails done, grabbing dinner, happy hour, grabbing coffee, working from a coffee shop together, and then sticking to it. I know it feels so good to bail on plans, but actually sticking to it, once you hang out with that person, you will feel so much better. Another thing that my friends and I have done are we've set annual trips, and I've one friend group where just three of us, and we actually didn't do an annual trip this year, but in the past we've done annual trips every single year, and we've like stuck to it. Even when we have plans, I've like really made sure that I get there. Or you can set like weekly hangouts for people that do live in your city. And you could start a group text with a bunch of girls that have a shared thing. There's a new friend that I made, and she was like, what if every single Wednesday we have a set group and we make a group text, and whoever can skin, which means like go uphill on the mountain, they're there and they go. And if you can't make it, you don't go. But it's just a standing appointment. Anyone that can make it goes, no pressure. And then you're guaranteed, if you're in town, to see those people every once in a while and also make new friends. So that's a great way to do it too. Coming back to goals, you could set a goal to approach two random people at a coffee shop or at your next yoga class in the next month. You could join Bumble BFF, go on a friend date, reach out to friends, especially, I did this when I moved to a new city, and ask them, hey, do you have any friends that live in Breckenridge? Do you have any friends that live in Denver? And get set up almost on these friend dates so that you can meet people and then meet their friends. And then it's like this whole web of new friends. You could set monthly goals to join different clubs or seek out new activities, join clubs or associations or communities that revolve around hobbies that you already have that you really enjoy, because that's another really great way to make new friends, is to go into something with that shared hobby and you both love it, and then you already have so much in common naturally. This is the same with religion too. I mean, I've always found this with being Jewish, and partly it's just because I'm always in the minority wherever I live, but anytime I meet someone else that's Jewish, I feel this like instant commonality between them. So joining a Bible study, making a book club, like that kind of thing too, can help meet other people and create community. But I do think the biggest thing, and all of this kind of centers around creating, and then we'll get to maintaining friendships. With creating friendships, we have to get out of that proximity mindset where, when you're in high school, when you're in college, when you're growing up in your same hometown, you have all these people with very common interests or very common upbringings that are just naturally around you. So you don't really have to try to meet anyone. But when you go out into the real world, or you move to a new city or a new country or wherever you are, you have to put in that effort, because people don't know you exist, and they're not going to just naturally come to you unless you put yourself in the situation. It's the same thing as taking, what's it called, like affirmative action when you're manifesting, putting yourself in the situations. Because if you sit at home, same if you're single and you want to meet someone, or you keep going to the same bar over and over again, and you haven't met anyone, you're probably not going to meet someone. But if you try to join a hiking club because you love to hike with other girls or other guys, then you meet people through that. And then it just becomes this like authentic, cool thing. So you have to try, and it's exhausting, but it is so much fun. Okay. And then maintaining friendships. So keeping those friendships close that you already have. And this is something that everyone is faced with, whether you're conscious of it or not, once you graduate college, because all of these people that were right next door to you are now really far away. And all of a sudden you can't just go across the hall in your sorority house to borrow a jacket and catch up with someone. You have to call them up on the phone after a long day at work when you're super tired and you've been super busy. So as I touched on earlier, maintaining friendships is very conscious, intentional, sometimes time-consuming work, and it involves inconveniencing yourself to show up for people, making them feel seen, heard, valued, and validated in your life. And not only do I think of your 20s as the most vital time to maintain those friendships, I also think it's the easiest time, because when you're in your 20s, you have the most autonomy you will ever have. You are single, you're in a relationship, but you're not married, you probably don't have kids yet. You have like no responsibilities. You're in like an entry level job that doesn't really require a ton of your brain space. So you can like still go out and party and do all the things. And I find that as I get older, I'm more selfish with my time and I value my alone time a lot more. So it was easier for me to inconvenience myself for my friends earlier on in my life, because I just didn't really care about time as much. And I don't think I valued it as much, to be honest. So if you're listening to this and you are in, any point of your life, but especially if you're in your 20s and you're looking around or you're thinking and you're like, I have really not been pouring so much time into my friends, fucking do it. Like you have to. You have to do it if you want to look around and see yourself surrounded with people. If you don't care and you're more of a loner, or you just want to be with your boyfriend all day, totally fine, to each their own. But my biggest pet peeve, my biggest friend pet peeve, is when I have a friend who goes off, dates a guy, does not speak to me, does not give me the time of day, never wants to hang out, and then they break up and then they come back begging. I'm like, yes, I am still here and I will support you, but like, where the fuck have you been for the last months, 5 years of my life. Like, you don't know anything about my life. You haven't cared, but now that this guy's kicked you to the curb, you care. So I think friendships are really important just as much as relationships. You never know what's going to happen in life. And I think having as many people around you that love and support you as possible, I mean, why not? So yeah, as you get older, you also have less time to put towards other people, which is why your circle grows smaller and smaller as you age. It's a very beautiful thing. Over my 20s, I've lost a lot of friends for sure, but when I look back at that, it doesn't make me sad because any friendships that I no longer have in my current life shouldn't be in my life anymore. They weren't serving me. Either they were affecting me negatively or they just weren't affecting me positively. Like they weren't doing anything for me. And I have so many friends that inspire me and that motivate me and that not learn me, but teach me so many things in life. And so I try to focus on those and you just get more selfish with your time. So your circle lessens. But it's amazing. And you'll probably have less weddings to go to than I do. So that's a win there. And we all, and I'm sure you can imagine this as you're listening, have those friendships that require like little to no maintenance. The friends that you've had for forever that you could go literally a year without talking and then you call them and it feels like no time has passed and like they don't give a shit. But I will say don't forget about those either because I've neglected those or put those on the back burner as I'm like in the new friend zone and I'm making all these new friends and new relationships because your best friends from childhood that you've had forever are friends that you feel like you don't really owe much and or that you don't really have to put much maintenance towards because you guys have such a deep friendship. You want to have forever in your life. So you shouldn't like neglect them or push them aside. Like I think it's really comforting having those friends, but always make sure that you're showing them love too and not forgetting about them as you journey on in life and make new friends. So, yeah, I think maintaining friendships is pretty easy and straightforward, or maybe not easy, but definitely straightforward. Just allow people to feel close to you, share things, be there to listen, ask thoughtful things, keep up with them, stay consistent, and go out of your way. I mean, it's a labor of love. And by watering plants that are your friends, then you'll have them for life. And I think a key thing with friendships and relationships too, a very, very vital piece when you're meeting new people is you have to have a good idea of who you are first. If you're wanting to create new relationships in your life, you have to know how you want to show up in those situations when you go to that party or when you go on that date or go to that first community meetup for the first time, who you want to show up as, what you want to prioritize, what you like to do for fun, and the ways in which you like to spend your time. Because it is impossible to create genuine connection if you yourself are not genuine and if you don't know who you are. And this can be really scary. It can be really exciting because you're almost like a sculptor. You're like sculpting your new life. I've especially felt that way when I've moved or when I've traveled. But it also can be really scary because sometimes we wear masks in situations and try to conform socially to protect ourselves because rejection can really hurt when you're showing up as your true self. But the sense of self and the confidence are so confirmed when you're showing up as your genuine self and when you are accepted as your genuine self and you make those connections as your genuine self. And I think by continuing to put yourself out there and make connections and when you are accepted, it's like working a muscle. The more you work that, the more genuine you end up. And so you're almost working on yourself through these relationships, like using them as a mirror, which I've talked about before. So that's really cool too. And the last two random topics that I've been ruminating on in the last few months, my time away, are about singleness and about being in relationships. Two subjects I never shut the fuck up about. The first topic that I want to talk about with singleness while we're talking about, friendships and all of that, because with trying to make friends and putting yourself out there also comes loneliness, rejection, and time spent alone and solitude. So let's start with the single experience. I want to start by just validating it. I saw an Instagram post about this and it sparked a ton of thought for me. And I wrote a lot of this down as I've been single the majority of my life and felt so looked down upon and misunderstood by a lot of people throughout those periods. So there's just a few things I want to say. And I also don't mean for this to come off like condescending because I am now in a relationship. I just got in a relationship. So like I said, I've been single the majority of my life and feel like I have the legs to stand on to speak on this because I've been in every up and every down of singleness for sure. And I just want to say you can be independent and be capable of being on your own while still desperately wanting to be in a relationship. Yes, I use the word desperately. We hate the word desperate and it has such a negative connotation and I do not know why. Both can be true and it is totally okay. It's so natural and normal to seek a relationship, to seek romantic companionship and love. I mean, it's literally like biological. Like we were born and bred to seek companionship just to further our species. And people say, well, what about family love, friend love? It's totally different. Romantic love is completely different. And I really wanted to use the word desperately because the word desperate gets such a bad rap and no one wants to seem desperate. And I think in that process of fighting that description of being quote unquote desperate, it often keeps us from admitting how desperately we desire a romantic partner. And when we fail to admit what we truly seek, either to ourselves, to our friends, to our family, to the universe, we also fail to show the universe that this is what I really want. And if you're telling yourself that you would rather be single just to make yourself feel better about being single, you're not going to be open to the experience of looking for that romantic partner. If you don't put that out energetically, how can we expect it to come true? The universe cannot conspire for us if you're trying to play coy and be too cool for the universe itself. Make desperate cool again. Another thing, because I feel like people are constantly like, oh, you have to put yourself out there. Dating is whiplash. And I want to validate how awful that experience can be. It's super important. I mean, it can be so much fun and it can be rewarding and it can be silly and flirty and you get your drinks and dinners paid for and la 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 and you get to dress up. And I'm sure every married person in your life is telling you the same tired advice of like, getting on the dating apps and going on dates when they have no fucking earthly clue what it's like out here in the streets. It's tough. So you do take their advice and you go on an amazing first date and you have mediocre but acceptable sex. And then you're ghosted. He never follows up and you are left wondering why you're not good enough and overanalyzing the weeks of text correspondence of evidence you have that it could have been something. So in between all the quote unquote putting yourself out there, it's okay to feel burnt out and also need to take a break from dating because dating fucking sucks sometimes. And even me saying earlier about showing the universe you're open, you can admit that privately to yourself. If you're not ready to admit that to the world or you're not ready to get on the dating apps for some reason, that's totally okay. But I think journaling it somewhere or speaking it out to yourself is really important to show and admit to yourself that, okay, I do want to meet someone and I do want to make this a priority. And if I sound desperate, I don't care because being desperate is not a bad thing. All in all, though, singleness can be really, really hard, especially depending on what phase of life you're in. And this is how I felt when I was single too. And I tried to push this on myself instead of just feeling sorry for myself all the time. It really is such a unique time to have 100% autonomy and act selfishly and focus on yourself and your friendships and have one night stands and do whatever the fuck you want. And I've done podcasts on this. And that was one of the first podcasts I recorded was about really grabbing your singleness by the balls and taking advantage of it because I love every ounce of that time in my life as it's come and gone in my 30 years on this earth. But I also think all of those things can be true and you can really take advantage of it if it's something that you feel like you're choosing. If your singleness is unwanted and you're feeling lonely, it can be a really glamorized period of time by other people. And then that makes you feel even more lonely in your singleness. And you're like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Why am I not enjoying this? So yeah, I've given all the advice on singleness in plenty of episodes. This was less about advice and more just me validating your experience because advice from people that are married to their high school sweetheart can be so fucking patronizing. I totally get it. And if you're not single and have a single friend, don't cast judgment. Don't give shitty, condescending, unhelpful, or unrealistic advice. If you've been with your boyfriend for forever or your husband, recognize that your experience is different than your friends and that you may not be the best person to tell them what they should or shouldn't do. And please stop summing up your single friends' existence and worthiness to who they are dating. The amount of times, and this is like a core reason why I've dropped some friendships. If I'm like catching up with a friend that I haven't caught up with in a while and I'm not dating anyone and I don't have anyone on the horizon, they literally don't know what to ask me. So yeah, if you're listening to this and you're in a relationship, please treat everyone with kindness and everyone has their own journey and their own time and realize that people probably don't want your fucking relationship anyway. Like just allow everyone to do their own thing. And I've just been on the other side of that way too many times. And then the last thing I'll say, with singleness is then I was thinking about being in a relationship as I am newly in a relationship and I feel like I'm just making it my whole fucking personality, but I'm really, really trying not to. I was thinking about this. So I remember on a walk when I was at my parents' house, and the premise is just the thought that being in a relationship takes a lot of time. It takes away time to yourself and to your friends. And it's perfectly okay to admit that you want to prioritize a relationship, but you have to recognize that if you lose your footing with that, your friends are totally valid if they slowly stop inviting you to things when you repeatedly don't show up. No pet peeve irks me more, like I said earlier, when a friend goes ghost mode because they're in a relationship and then they break up and then they come back, crawling back into your life because they have no one. And I think it's up to you to figure out that balance, if you are in a relationship. And that is something that I always struggled with. I haven't really been ready to sacrifice that kind of time. I wanted to prioritize my friends, myself, my selfishness, and my autonomy. So I wasn't really ready to make that quote unquote sacrifice when I've been in relationships in the past. And in turn, I've been a really shitty girlfriend. I have neglected my boyfriend, not on purpose, accidentally, because I hated the thought of losing my friends. And I have so many friends that have been shitty friends to me that I almost did the opposite, where anytime I was in a relationship, I would just be a really shitty girlfriend because I wanted to make sure I was always there for my friends. I wanted to be everyone's single friend. I wanted to be the wing woman. I wanted to be the yes girl. And I didn't want to change just because I had a boyfriend. So then not only did that cause me to be a bad girlfriend, but it caused this like weird insecurity in me that if I was in a relationship, I would get really insecure about it with my friends that were single because I didn't want them to view me as different than them. I still wanted to be a part of everything that they were doing. So that was super interesting. And, now that I'm in a relationship and I think it's the right timing, right person, right place, right everything, I finally feel ready to give just enough where I'm giving to myself, I'm giving to him, and I'm giving to my friends. And I don't feel this weird pull or insecurity to like neglect him or talk down to him or make him less in my life to like empower me. It's a very like level playing field. And again, I think it was right timing too, which, that's another thing with relationships taking a lot of time and care and dedication with the right person at the right time when you're ready. It shouldn't feel like a chore or an inconvenience. Like at this point in my life, I'm 30 years old. I was wanting a relationship. I was ready for a relationship, which should not be cringy to admit, but sometimes it is. I was desperate for a relationship that I was ready to put in that time. But before this, I have not been. I've been having fun. I've been traveling, doing my thing. And I'm so thankful for that time. But I have been in relationships in the last couple of years where I haven't been ready. And people always talk about like timing, timing, timing. And so that's another thing I want to say is if you are in a phase of your life where you don't really feel ready to prioritize someone else in your life and to take time away from other things in your life and put it towards something that you really love, then you're probably not ready to be in a relationship. And I think by recognizing that in yourself, you're sparing your partner, your possible partner, to being a bad partner. And you're also sparing yourself from a bunch of hurt and confusion and like lessons. So, because if I knew that about myself, and of course, everything happens for a reason, my last like two boyfriends, I just would never have dated because I was just like flying by the seat of my pants. I was having so much fun doing my thing, very selfish. And I don't think I was the best girlfriend that I could have been. And I learned so much from both of those relationships, obviously. But when I think back on it and I don't regret it, I just feel bad because I wasn't showing up appropriately. And, I don't think I was really looking for relationships either at that time in my life. So they both just kind of fell into my lap. But I just want to say that that is totally okay. If you aren't really feeling pulled to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever right now, don't let other people pressure you. If it's not your time, then just enjoy what you do have and enjoy what you are fulfilled by. And that's all I really have, I think, as far as my random trains of thoughts. I'm sure I'll think of other things in the coming weeks, and I'll probably do a whole like New Year's episode where we talk about the last year and lessons and resolutions and mindfulness practices and all the things. But this was really nice. It's nice. I'm also home alone. None of my roommates are here. So I'm getting to just like talk freely in my house. That's another reason why I didn't like recording podcasts here, was because I didn't like my roommates being able to hear me, even though they could go listen to this podcast at literally any point. But I'm glad I got to update you guys on my life. I hope you had a few positive takeaways or laughed or just found it entertaining per usual. And that's it for this episode. So this next period of time for me will be very hellish. Please wish me luck. My goal for Black Friday, Cyber Monday is $50,000. We've never hit that before. So hopefully we do. It's not looking good now, but we've still got, it's only Tuesday and Thanksgiving is Thursday, then Black Friday, then Cyber Monday. So hopefully we hit it. I'll keep you guys updated next time we chat. And then I'm going to be moving out of our office, doing pop-ups, shooting Rebellious Ski Club, hosting a banging New Year's party come December 31st, and going into the new year. So I will be very busy, but I'll be podcasting in the meantime. I've never taken a week off of this podcast, and I don't plan on doing it anytime soon. So you can catch us every single Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and wherever the fuck else people listen to podcasts these days. You can also catch us on YouTube if you want to watch me while I talk to myself or to other people. You can find us on Instagram at Raw Intentions Podcast. Please follow along and slide into my DMs anytime you want to chat about anything that you heard on the podcast or that you want to hear on a future podcast. I guess you want me to have on a conversation you want me to have. I'm always all ears and love hearing from y'all. And I love you guys so much. Thank you as always for listening. Happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays, and I will talk to y'all next week. See ya.